The next to be inspected are actually mixed plants because I have here mixed vegetable. And let's start here. I also have forgotten to water this a while ago. Ah, okay, wow. Can you notice? I actually planted here only two sets of spinach, but you can notice here that there is another one that is growing because by history there was a spinach here in this particular pot before, and the seeds fell. If you're going to notice here, this is actually the dried spinach before that I planted here, yet I abandoned this one because of the scarcity of water. And wow, even if we have abandoned it and the time comes that it became perfect for the seed of the spinach to germinate, then you can see here that it is growing. So that's the miracle of the seed. Even if it appears to be dying um, at the outer core, at the outer side of it, yet at the inner core of it, it is alive and it's just waiting for the time to germinate, or the perfect time or condition to germinate. Oh, that's a good point today. And there's also another one here, and I am also expecting also a growth here of another um, seeds from spinach because I also planted spinach here before. You saw this one. Okay, these are the dried leaves of Malabar spinach. And let's come here. Oh, in here you are noticing that there are leaves, newly developed leaves here. And this one also we have to water. Mhm. One thing that I am observing among these spinach that I have planted, like the kangkong is also a form of of spinach. We call it water spinach, or Ipumea aquatica. They're really very fond of water, and if there is water, even during the summer, they can survive. Next up is our moringa. As you can notice that from the bottom even up to the middle, and upon reaching almost at the summit of the moringa, these are not actually leaves, although newly planted. You can see here that it immediately proceeded into providing us blossoms, and eventually, since today is the season for the moringa to provide blossoms, so even the newly planted branch also goes with the season, and we are foreseeing it to be having abundant fruit later on. So I can imagine that from that summit there, a string type being a pod of moringa. So even the other moringa here at the other side also goes with the same pattern, and you can see here that don't mind about the leaves. These are actually the leaves of kamachili. You are going to see the blossoms of moringa, and it already is like a jasmine in appearance, and wow, it opens already. And perhaps it was also involved in the process of pollination. That's why there are plenty of bees visiting this area. But this moringa, although newly planted, by the way, I'd like to correct, it was newly transplanted because it was planted already at the other section and it was already progressing, yet I removed it for fear of being bashed or being blamed at the cracking of the wall. So I removed it from there because we understand that the roots can occupy sections which will worsen sometimes the the breakage of the wall, and we don't want to be blamed. So this one didn't follow the season or pattern because previously it was already having a progressive foliage and leaves, and right now, after 3 weeks, it started to regain its momentum of growing. So the previous leaves which we witness has now been restored at this point. Another moringa that was transplanted is located here almost at the end of our garden. I intently planted this in this section so that we will have a live pole, because this is actually almost dying. In fact, during the time that we restored our commitment to garden here, this pole was very lowly. We just have a lot of support, but later on we should have like a permanent pole so that from end to end, whenever we are going to coil a plant, a climbing plant like the squash, there is a strong support. And right now we are seeing it to be positively growing even up to the summit. There's also a new moringa from the seed that grew here. So yeah, let's allow it to grow because it is perfectly positioned to become a pole. Yeah, the story of this moringa was that this is actually very lengthy. I was doing my pruning in the mother moringa, and the pruning was actually part of collecting garbages and any type of leaves that includes moringa and branches, and I submerged it in my garden to become a compost. And it was very lengthy, like how many meters? I think 4 meters. And I didn't cut it. Instead, I excavated and submerged, and perhaps it was actually being placed near the surface of the soil. And I was very surprised because these branches here of moringa, if you're going to understand, this was actually reclining, this was actually lying. So these are the growth, and if the growth might have been like one only, then I will not be obliged, nor will I be inspired to uproot it or to remove it from where it was. I just allowed to rotten. But there were plenty of leaves. I mean, not leaves, branches that grew. So from here, and then here, and then here, here, and here. So there are plenty of branches. So I decided that this type of branch, and then the intention of the moringa to grow. So there is intention. I mean, the presence of the moringa, the active presence of it to grow and keep on growing, even if I trim it, yet it keeps on giving new growth each and every day. So I it got me, and I had my conscience stricken by it, and because of that, I decided to remove it. And you can see in here, in fact, there are mushrooms that grew already. It means this particular portion was already rotten. And um, Yeah, that particular portion. And from here down, yeah, it recovered at some point. So right now, we are so happy to feature to you that this has been successful, because last year I also planted here another moringa, but it didn't succeed. There were already growth actually before in this moringa, but I don't know why it didn't succeed. And I found out why, because when I excavated here, like um, half meter depth, when I reached the hardest portion of it, it was very, very hard. It could no longer be penetrated with our shovel. So that's where the reason or the explanation why this one didn't thrive, because the base of it was very heavy, and I mean very hard, not heavy, very hard, and it could not be penetrated with water. So my technique in here is that I just gradually water it, because the tendency is that the water is subsiding, and perhaps it's going to become a well and it will destroy even the root system of moringa. Let's hope and see that what we are seeing right now became like the positive response of moringa as we gradually water it. And we're just happy to even see the progress of it. It is really positively progressing. So another success story of our moringa is this one. Perhaps this is, I could say this is the third successful moringa I ever planted. And because the first one was in Bicol, and then the second one is in the UEE, and this is the one. It gave us already plenty of leaves and blossoms and even fruits. So this became the third one, and looking at it, there is a sign of progress. And when we say of progress, this moringa really, I saved this. This is the mother moringa, because when I came in here and started gardening, this moringa was cut from here. Um, it was almost being pruned, and the intention of the logger is to kill the entire moringa, but I saved it for the purpose of distributing food. And right now, wow, it became like forests. And even at the summit, you'll be able to see lots of healthy leaves, and they serves to become like the habitation of birds. And well, aside from being the habitation of birds, it also provides canopy each time that we wanted to relax. And at the same time, this is the source of our food. So nice. So I'll be showing you the lady fingers here, the status of the lady fingers that we planted. The lady fingers are actually located at the wall. I mean the base of the wall, sorry. So even this one is actually very close to the wall, and there are concretes there. I just had my random planting without thinking that it will survive, but with the presence of the growth right now, you can see that it is surviving. There are actually two sets there. So this one is advancing its growth. In fact, there are already new leaves, so this gives me the signal to do some kind of barriers so that it will not be inclining and would hinder my way as I visit this area. This one is growing in between the concrete. So there are three sets here, and this one is growing with freedom. So just a tip for all of you, the one that is actually growing along with the ladyfinger is a basil. So why we are putting basil here, you know, we are not using insecticides here or pesticides. So we are utilizing the natural scents, and this is repellent actually, including neem tree, and this one has a pungent smell, and perhaps because of the pungent smell that allows the insects to go away. This one really is growing very close to the wall. There is a single one that is newly germinated, just few days. But this must be the reason why it was late. Ah, perhaps because we didn't water it. So this one is part of those ladyfinger that grew very slender. I mean, in a slender manner. Perhaps because of the canopy here. And this one is growing in between the rocks. So the ladyfinger is growing in competition with the date palm. Huh. One thing that we can really observe right now, as the time goes by, the ladyfingers became so obvious. I mean, they became so visible this time. Their presence became visible. So even up to here, we are planting. So right now, there are also grasses that grew along with the ladyfingers. Okay, let's try to check the radish. How are you, radish? Another radish here. This one is our cucumber. Another cucumber here. And the beetroot gourd, it started to climb. We're so happy to see that, and there are already support systems that they can cling on. This is our wing bean. Say hello to our wing bean. And this is our white gourd. Another white gourd here. And the Ipumea aquatica. And the sweet potato also. So these are our other plants here. Mix plants. Oh, there is a foliage that needs to be harvested. They are situated on the side of it. So thank you guys for watching SAS TV Official.